Hello, everyone. My name is Brent Frain. I'm the host for Canadians with Disabilities and their Allies. Welcome, everyone, to another great episode. I am really pleased to announce that I have Alan Davies joining me today. And welcome, Alan Davies. He's the F-Stop. Everyone knows him as F-Stop on Twitter. He's the Fast Photos, and he's a photographer. And he's a great PWD advocate, and he's also very passionate about tiny homes. So today we're going to dive into his photography, about his PWD advocacy, and we're going to talk a lot about tiny homes. And I think that's just a really good topic and topics that we're going to be covering today, amongst other general discussions if we have time to dive into that. So with all going forward, welcome, Alan.
Hey, how are you doing?
Great, welcome. Thank you. Thanks for coming on.
No problem. It's a nice time to get together again in New Year, so I'm good to go.
Yeah. So Alan, let's talk first. Well, thanks for coming on, and let's talk about your photography. I want the listeners to kind of get a better idea of how did you get involved with photography, and maybe a little bit about the background about the F-Stop and the Fast 50 photos.
Okay, well, I started off probably the age of 15 with an old film camera. Would have been, well, I guess a Canon AE1 back in the day. That was what my dad had. And I fiddled around with that. Probably wouldn't consider myself a photographer till I was probably 16 and a half. It's like you might pick up a guitar when you're 14, but you don't consider yourself a guitarist till you're maybe 17, you know? It's one of those, just because you're in a church doesn't mean you go to a church kind of thing. I then at age 16 got my grandfather's Leica camera, which was ahead of its time back for its day, and he had just had it sitting in a closet because film back in England was very expensive.
Yeah, those Leicas are hugely expensive.
Oh yes, well, I mean back in the day before they were digital, they were considered almost as good as a Hasselblad.
Yeah.
Now you play for the Leica name because it's like Gucci.
Mm-hmm.
And same with Hasselblad, really. Hasselblad, all these camera companies like Intel, I think I'm saying it right. Hasselblad were medium format, so they were larger than full frame. And when they say full frame now, they really mean what used to be 35 millimeter optic. So when you hear a camera's a crop camera, like some of the entry-level Nikons and Canons, they call themselves APS sensors. It means that their image or their sensor, I think, I don't want to be wrong on this, is cropped in by 1.4 or 1.5. And then there is one below that, which is micro four thirds. And now you're getting closer to what cell phones are. You have to think of sensors like coins. Okay, so we have probably, for argument's sake, here's a dime. We have a cell phone sensor or a micro four thirds sensor is, and that's the amount of light coming that's going to hit the sensor, and the sensor is going to turn those ones and zeros into a picture. And then we have a nickel, and we'll call the nickel maybe a crop sensor. It's still a much decent sensor. It's letting a lot more light in. And then we have a loonie, which is full frame. And as the loonie's bigger, the bigger sensor. And then I don't have a tuning on me here, so imagine I had a tuning in my hand. That would be medium format.
Basically, the bigger the sensor, the more the light gets into the camera.
The bigger the sensor, and the way I mean, I don't have a mirrorless camera, so I don't want to squat about it except for what I've seen in videos. But they let so much more light in, and they don't have mechanical shutters that can close. The shutter is digital; it's electronic. They can run much faster glass on them, and I mean when one is firing, this is my Nikon. It is a Nikon D850. It is full frame, so the distance, depending on brand of the lens, I think the focal distance might be a little different. But essentially, this is, I believe, a 24 to 70.
Yeah, that's a pretty standard.
Yes, this is a 24 to 70 lens, and it is actually a 24 to 70. Now, if I put this lens on a crop camera, you would times that number by 1.4.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Or sometimes 1.5 or 1.6, depending on the crop.
If you're Canon, it's generally, if you're Canon, it is
1.6,
1.5. If you're Nikon, it's 1.4. But this is actually a sensor. And the beautiful thing about this little camera is that they packed a Nikon D500 crop camera inside a full frame camera. Because if I go and put a crop lens, like the entry level 18 to 200 crop lens, a DX lens, on this camera, on my screen it would gray out what it can't see. So essentially it turns my full frame camera into a crop camera, which is really neat when you get to a beast like this, which is a full frame. I'm not gloating. I'm not trying to do so much for show and tell, but
that's gonna break your back.
This is a 2 to 500 millimeter. Now, if I put the camera in DX mode, which I forced, like when I said this camera has a crop camera inside it. If I want, I can put this camera into DX crop mode.
Okay.
And I can put this lens on. Instead of it being 2 to 500,
that's huge.
It's now like 350 to 800. Or I don't have my calculator in front of me, but essentially that is what it does. So
imagine carrying that on your shoulder there.
I'm the hunchback at the same time. They actually say that the best way to use this lens is to use it with a tripod.
Yeah, no
kidding. Put the tripod lens on the tripod and you can mount the camera to the lens, but when you actually mount the tripod to the foot of the lens, if anyone can see.
One question I had for you, Alan, is I wanted to know how your PWD advocacy affects your photography, or if it does. Is there any kind of overlap between what you do on your advocacy versus what you do on your photography?
That's a good question. I suppose
Yeah.
I suppose the challenges of being disabled affect my photography in little
Accessibility.
ways. Um, as far as social interaction go, but generally when I have the camera on me, I'm kind of in my own zone,
Mm-hmm.
which means I don't feel as awkward as I might at a grocery store or at a mall. I'm kind of in that clique.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
as far as the photography goes, I guess I learn and I process when I'm learning differently.
I just wondered by like
That might
thematically too, though. I was wondering like I know for myself, like I've been involved with a lot of like there was a couple of years there that I did a Miss Wheelchair pageant. So I did it.
Mm.
I've actually taken a lot of people with disabilities, taken a lot of photos of people with disabilities, and so I wanted to know if you did if you've done a lot of street photography of like homeless people or something like that, or.
I did. I was when I was in Toronto. I probably did more than I do now.
Mhm.
Um, many years ago, I was involved in a project called Another Nobody. But I hadn't done the photography aspect of it. That
Mm.
had already been done by a freelance journalist. Um, I he gave me some photos he had taken across Canada, black and white, with a film camera, and he was getting rid of the camera. I think that I had it for a while. I think he just gave me the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was a Nikon F3 film camera. That was probably my first Nikon actually. Though I primarily used my Leica back then. Um, and I went to my local poetry group, and there were several journalists and poets and stuff on there at the time. And I sort of said, listen, I've got a project in mind. It's photos from a photographer journalist who had taken photos of homeless people across Canada.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to create a project to give some advocacy. So I was looking for my. It was a poetry group once a month, and I basically had these poets and songwriters and stuff write a poem to each photo. And there was a
That's cool.
journalist who was really good at desktop publishing at the time, and he made a little chapbook. I don't know if anybody was familiar with chapbooks. They were really big in the '90s, almost like an
Yeah. Uh,
e magazine. And
yeah.
he did a book. The photos are pretty grainy, but it's kind of we had it. It kind of worked for
Mm-hmm.
the time. But the idea was, I think we ran about 150 of these, and we were going to distribute them for people to sell who were actually homeless, so they could
Nice.
use the books to generate some pocket change for themselves. And this is
And that's
way
how your
before the
PWD
internet had really
came in. Yeah.
I mean, we had Google, but it was pretty much Telnex. I don't think there's any visual Google in '96. Maybe there was, my brain, but I can't remember that far back. I remember in college it was all Telnex, and you had to flip the modem over and then dial. Um, but we went to I went to as far as BC with him. He's actually still in Victoria. I
Hmm.
came back because my my stuff was at risk,
Hmm.
and I needed to sort out my personal belongings. And I ended up going to college in Welland, Ontario. So, I mean, my plan was to sell everything off and go back to BC, but those weren't in the cards. So, um, it's a I'm trying to answer Brent. It's quite Neil's question in a long-winded way here.
It's all
So
good. It's all
I've
good.
done I have done some I've done some homeless photos, street photography wise, mostly getting used to a DSLR camera, which was a D200 back in the day.
Hmm.
It was one of the first Nikon professional cameras, and they hadn't even come out with full frame, and everything was still crop sensitive using Sony internals. So um, the D200 was pretty good as far as it got. It wasn't until the following year that Nikon's first full frame camera came out, and that would be the D3, which would they considered still to this day a halo camera. I mean, it's old as dirt, you know. But
Awesome.
I had done some street photography in Toronto, but with no real fixed um, no real focal fix on what I was actually. It was just like pray and spray. If I saw someone in a subway door
Yeah.
stepway going down to the TVC or something, I would maybe, if I had my camera on me, most of the time, um, because I didn't want to be lugging gear and I didn't know the city.
Hmm.
My iPhone 5 was my camera all the time.
Alan.
Um,
When I had a Canon, little Canon camera. I don't have it now, but it was like the size of like this.
oh yeah,
You know what I
yeah. Well,
mean?
that
And
killed the,
and you turn the
when
little nose. Oh, turn to video. Turn to
yeah.
whatever you want. It was so cool. I thought it was the next best thing, right? And it was all digital. I'm going neato, right? How technology
Um,
has changed.
well, you got to realize that, like when cell phones really became in everybody's pocket, when they were
Mm.
starting to get plans, they were flip phones, right? We were all
Or
texting using the keypad
how
stuff,
about a pager?
whether they were slide out keyboards or
Those were
if they
neat.
were the razor where you had to type the letter one so many times to get the letter B,
Well, BlackBerry
those
was even better, right?
yeah, BlackBerry was a little better, but all those little point and shoot digital cameras that were the size of iPhones
Yeah.
Yes.
got obliterated because people were going, well, now I've got this. And even the iPhone 3, um, because of the way the optics were in these point and shoot digital cameras, they're still out there. You can
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
buy them today. Nikon makes a wonderful waterproof point and shoot that you can go maybe 30 feet down in your
Hmm.
Hmm.
swimming pool or at the lake. But
Of course, the
eventually,
Orange on that.
once you start removing the ports from phones, that'll be
yeah.
it. That'll that'll be the final nail
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Don't worry. They're
this.
waterproof. Don't worry. Blah, 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 blah,
Well, of
blah.
course, all these people with cell phones now, everybody considers themselves a photographer because everybody's got their,
Yeah.
a camera
Like
on their phone.
Yeah.
But the one thing that you're really missing when you have a smartphone versus a dedicated camera is your ability to play with light more. There's like so much more low
Oh,
light capabilities of a
yes.
dedicated camera, and I really appreciate, like, I'm a photo nerd myself, and I love low light photography. I love portraits and the ability to really get an out of focus background and really make a really
yeah. Well,
creamy
that's
bokeh.
the bokeh
They
effect,
call
right?
it the bokeh,
It's
and the low light
yeah.
effect. That's
Well,
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
um, what's happening, what really creates the bokeh effect is um, your aperture.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And even if you're on your phone and you're shooting at 2.8 on the phone, if you
Mm-hmm.
set your aperture, my real gripe with iPhones is that I found that my S9 Samsung has was that they had a full manual mode, which means in the Android phone you could control your ISO, your shutter, your aperture, everything that you could on a regular. I can on my camera. With the iPhone, you can only control your aperture depending on what mode you're in, and
Yeah.
you can only control your exposure. Um, there is a way, apparently, if you click on the live mode, that you can do the long exposure, but I have never been able to get it. The only thing they really added to the iPhone this year or last year was in the 13 was the macro ability, where if you put your phone up close, you get this little flower icon, and it tells you've got the phone in a macro situation.
Oh, well, even
Macro
trying to
mode,
capture birds too,
yeah.
Alan. It's like I took a little video the other day, and it was just the perfect timing. One bird flew up, and then one bird flew down.
Nice,
Yeah, it was
right?
great. It was, yeah.
But yeah, if you have the iPhone 13, maybe they brought it down to firmware to the other cameras, but in that my iPhone 12 didn't have it, so I didn't have a macro mode, but I do now. Um, but yeah, the aperture basically controls where the background's blurred. I mean, the higher the f-stop number you go,
Yeah.
I go from f.28 on my full frame camera, and
Oh,
I
well.
jack it, and I jack up to like f11 or
Okay.
f22.
Oh.
That's when everything's in focus
Everything gets
because
flat.
of the depth of
Yeah.
field
Yeah,
Yeah.
is
perfect.
affected. Um, so I'm really fortunate with the Nikon. When they built the D850, it was like their final wave. It was like, thank you for being a Nikon user for the last 30 years. We're going to do something special. And then we're not building another one. So, like, everybody's going, oh, I can't wait for the new Nikon D860 or D900. It's not happening unless Nikon does something like special. They're going to replace the DSLRs, all with mirrorless cameras. But the Nikon D850, I've seen videos going with photographers going, in 2023, I still won't give up my Nikon D850 because this thing is a beast, and it's got 45 megapixel sensor on it.
Oh,
It's a
Wow.
beast.
that's
I mean,
impressive.
the only drawback is that the images, unless you save them as a JPEG, are
Huge.
brutal. They're
Yeah,
brutal.
yeah.
It's megabytes. You know, like good luck trying to get that up on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I know.
no doubt.
Yeah, but it does allow me to. There's an app for the Nikon called Nikon Snap Bridge, which has sort of works, sort of doesn't. Depends on what camera you have and what phone you have. Um,
Hmm.
but it allows me to download a 2 megapixel version of that photo. It takes a JPEG and it allows me. So if I'm not doing anything like important, like I've gone and photographed a bunch of bridges or something, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to blow them up. It's just Instagram. It's just Instagram cookies, you know? I'm just going to use it to like, oh, I took 4 interesting sunsets with a bridge behind them. I don't I don't need the raw file.
Hmm.
If I want it, I've got it. It's there. But I'll just generally I'll just generally edit the 2 megapixel version. If I need the raw, then I'll put the photos every so often into a folder on my iMac I'm on now, and I'll put them into Lightroom. I'll
Oh,
name
okay.
them in a folder, and I'll edit them as such. I've got full access to the raw file, and then I'll export them as a JPEG. If I want the raw, it's still in the program. It's still accessible. It's still on the computer,
Hmm.
but
Still the original, yeah.
the JPEG is now so it's a win-win. Like on the fly, I can use the mobile Adobe, for those photos that I just needed the JPEGs for. I can upload them into into an album. I can access them on any device that my Photoshop's on, whether it's my iPad or my iMac or my phone. Um, and people go, "Oh, he's an Apple guy." I'm still a
Yeah.
PC guy. If there was a reason I needed a PC, I'd have a PC sitting next to my Mac. I'm not.
I'm the
It's a
same.
tool.
I'm the same way, Alan. I'm still
It's a
PC guy.
paintbrush.
We had a
I just
oh
I just I had a PC for a while. It was I forget what brand it was, Acer I think or
Oh,
something.
yeah.
It was a sweet little machine. It was tiny little
Oh,
machine. I suspect it was a little hot. I bought it from someone in my co-op. I think it may have been a little toasty for the road.
gray market. Yeah.
yep.
A little gray market.
We had a question from the floor here on the live chat.
Sure.
Far away.
From
Yeah.
Jennifer, and you kind of answered this already, but for anybody that missed your first answer, she says, "Does photography give you freedom from having a disability to have a way to express yourself?" You kind of touched on that a little bit. But
Yeah.
Yes,
That's a
I
good
think
question.
I
Thanks,
think
Jennifer.
I would say that when I have friends of mine that go, oh, don't take your camera to Toronto. You'll get mugged in the first 5 minutes. You're not a 6'2", 300-pound guy, and I can appreciate where they're coming from.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't get bugged. I mean, I'm probably not out at 2 in the morning, but unless it's Nuit Blanche, which is the all-night arts show, which generally people don't bug me anyway because they're A, too freezing to mug anybody, and B, they're looking at the art exhibits anyway.
Yeah.
Or they're in the pubs getting a few on, because
Right.
it's a cold night. I've done Nuit Blanche a couple of times. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but it's the big all-night art show, and it starts at Yonge Street at College, and it goes just all the way to almost Trinity Bellwoods. It's huge.
Yeah.
But I don't get bugged, and I suppose to answer Jennifer's question is having my camera. It's kind of like having a bulletproof shield. People tend to mind their own business. They'll come up to me and ask if I have a business card or something, or what I'm photographing. But I can almost sit on obviously there are sections of certain streets in Toronto you don't want to be wandering around on.
Right.
But I think Dan would probably be able to answer that better. He knows, being a resident of Toronto, I don't think I would take my camera to, say, Dundas East and Sherburne or out to Jane and Finch. But if I'm sitting on Queen West at, let's see, Spadina and Queen West, I don't get bugged.
Right.
I don't. Even
It's kind of safer areas.
I can sit there and people watch and lifestyle shoot till my heart's content. I don't. I mean, listen, if someone's going to come up to me and ask me if I have a cigarette or if I got a loonie. If I got a loonie, I'll probably give it to them. If I got a cigarette, they'll probably thank me. But I haven't had a cigarette in 5 years, so. Sorry about the luck.
You know what I love about photography is that that I'm a big photography nut too, and I use a 4/3 camera, an Olympus 4/3 camera. But I've always really liked photography for especially the portraits. And I always find, even if I'm meeting a person for the very first time, I've never photographed them ever before in my life. It's that immediate connection you have with that person. It's just it's so cool that they just seem to trust me right away. It's I'll say go stand there and pose like that, and they'll just do it. And it's it's very empowering to say, I want you to stand there. I want you to pose like that, and I want the light coming through like this, and you can just
Yeah,
tell
it's
people
kinda
to
like standing like this.
tell
or
people to
like
do
Yeah.
it, and they'll do it, and it's so
Yeah.
empowering. And
Oh, yeah.
I just love the ability to capture the moment and capture the essence of a person. Like I'm always looking to get that one perfect shot. I'll delete a whole bunch of shots too. Like I'm very
Oh yeah, but
picky.
the rule of if you've got 10 shots,
Yeah.
2 are okay.
Yeah.
But I
I've
love
done
getting the
that.
essence of a person. That to me is the greatest thing. Being able to catch the essence of a moment, and having
that's-
somebody trust you with it. Like if I go say stand there, and pose like that, and they'll do it, and it's like wow, that's great.
Well, it's
I have a
like
bunch of
it's like
people
when
come
I'm
up to
doing.
me. If I've got my camera around my hip on my strap, like on the strap, and it's like around my, and someone's taking pictures with their phone. I've had people come up and go, "Hey, could you take a picture of us?" Because they'll see me walking
Yep.
with this camera. They know obviously if he's got this thing waddling around his mounting against his ribs. Ow. Oh, I've had this thing like swing out and swing back in.
It's getting the right angle of the
Yeah.
photos too, right? Because it's like when I do some photos out there, right, I'll snap a bunch of different shots, and I'm like, no, don't like that one, I toss it out, and so yeah,
And they love it when you offer too. Like if one of them is in the group, like before I've had it where I walked downtown. This happened the first right from the lockdown. I think the last lockdown, and then we went into another lockdown, and then that was it. So this is between the last two. I had gone to Toronto. I think it's when I bought my fedora, my Panama fedora, and I was just coming back from Kingston Market, and I guess there were a bunch of young ladies all in their flower dresses, and they wanted to get a photo, and one of them was the designated camera shooter, and there was like 4 of them, and it was just at University and Queens. So there's this wrought iron building with this swiveling gate. It's like a what do you call it, a roundabout or carousel with the and they saw me with the camera and they were smiling. And I guess they were smiling more. They were smiling more for the girl who was taking the picture. But I just said, hey, if you would like to be in the shot, I'll take a photo with your phone so that you can all be in there. But so that happens a lot. So there's definitely interactions. I mean, it's nice to have business cards on you. But I genuinely find that having a camera around my hip is going to be a lot more prominent as far as a conversation starter than me putting a bunch of business cards in like a boutique store. I generally get a lot more interaction. Like I was taking photos downtown where I live, and this young lady came up and she was just like started a conversation with me, and I was trying to like the problem is I think maybe it's like part of my disability, but I kind of like I have this almost music on people off when I'm shooting, whether not when I'm shooting a model. When I'm shooting a model, I'm working with her and there's communication or whatever. But if I'm out just shooting like graffiti on the side of a building or an art piece or something, or I'm trying to test out, trying to find the lens I was looking for. Bear with me. This is my macro lens. So I had just bought this about that time, and I was testing. It's a 105 2.8 macro lens. So it's a fixed lens. I'll see if I can put the hood on without doing it blindly. Oh, there. Okay. Can almost do it without looking at it. Almost do it without looking at it. But this is a macro lens.
Almost do it with your eyes.
It's manual focus, so you can really I usually put the body on autofocus, but the lens I will, it actually is a autofocus lens, but generally I will focus in on, and the bokeh on this little sucker is wow.
Well, you could
The
just do right
colors,
into that,
the
right?
color separation. I posted some
Oh, cool.
flowers, a picture of flowers. I took at Alun Gardens uh, last time I was up visiting my mom, and it was this pouring, miserable, wet day in Toronto. And it was one of the weekends that Alun Gardens was open finally. So I go in there, and I don't know if anybody's ever been there. It looks like a big glass dome in the center with two inner gardens going off the center, and it's right at college, and it's a big park. It's been actually part of the tent city for a
Oh,
good
wow.
long chunk of the lockdown.
Sounds
It still
interesting.
is,
Sounds like
but
a good place.
it's east of. It's not far from Ryerson University, but it's east of Yonge Street, kind of in the middle of College Park and Dundas. Um, Dan would know exactly where Aaron
Yeah,
Garden
I know.
is.
I've heard him talking about that area. I've never been that area, but
Anyway, it was pouring this day, and I thought, you know what? I got this lens. I brought it along, um, and I had my big bag because I was staying at my mom's overnight. So it's a huge big bag. It's really the bag I would use take with me if I'm going to go shoot a model. And I need like two flashes, and I need this and that. But in this instance, I just need something big enough to throw a toothbrush, a t-shirt, and a pair of jeans into. So with the camera gear, so fortunately, I had my three lenses plus my macros, and I took it in on this miserable, wet, rainy day, and I photographed these flowers to test this lens, and the bokeh separation was just unreal.
it's totally
Uh,
amazing. Yeah.
oh yeah, I mean, there's a lens I want to get now, which I will be my portrait lens. It'll probably be my next and probably my only lens for the next 10 years unless I can get a deal on something. It's an 85 millimeter 1.4 um, 1.4 G class full frame lens, and it's an older Nikon lens. They go into about $900 because they're so coveted. It's like if unless a photographer is switching lens platforms, this is the one lens that they never sell.
Oh,
So good luck finding one. It's a
they're not,
coveted lens.
they're not a big
Oh,
seller,
they're
but
hard. You won't find them on Facebook Marketplace unless someone's selling
oh,
its entire kit.
oh wow.
Just because it's one of the older last made in Japan lenses, and it's all metal, and it's a portrait king. It's Nikon has replaced it with a current lens, which is now made in China, and it's a decent lens, but it's also $2,000,
Right.
not
Oh,
900,
oh,
and the 105 1.4 is pretty much a staple lens, but it has nothing on the OD class.
135 is a nice portrait length too.
It is. The 85 AFS 1.4D is such a coveted lens because it's built like a tank. It's made in Japan. It's got so many elements and groups inside it that the bokeh separation. I rented this lens from a photographer friend of mine that had a studio on Parliament in Toronto, and the bokeh separation on this lens was just. If you want to see what this lens will do, Google Google photos of 85 millimeter 1.4D lens, and I'm sure you'll see, even in the YouTube video, you'll see a photographer who's used one, and it's just, I don't have anything in my arsenal. Wait, I do. This is an old manual. Uh, this is an old manual, 50 millimeter. It's a staple lens.
Yeah, the nifty
But it's
50.
this is the nifty 50. But this would have come off a 1970s film camera.
Wow.
It
Oh,
does
wow.
fit. The reason it fits
So-
my Nikon, it will fit my Nikon, but it's
That was so neato.
it,
Good old
it
classic.
it still has the old. So there's no pins. There's no focal.
Oh, there's no communication with the camera.
It is
No.
manual, fully
Yeah.
manual.
Yeah,
Now,
Yeah.
if you can zero it in, and I have,
yeah.
I'm going to have to get. I think I'm going to have to get myself a 1.8 autofocus one just for practical day-to-day use. But this little sucker is of the era that 85 1D is. This is actually a couple years old, but it's butter smooth. This lens, I mean, you can still hear it click. I think the only other lens I have that's really killer is this one, which is a wide angle 15 to 30. And this lens, the reason I pulled this lens out is because this lens is perfect, almost a perfect street photography lens.
That looks like a
It's-
2 point, like a big
It's
beer
a
mug or something.
2.8.
That thing's huge.
It's a 2.8.
Wow.
You can't put filters on it, but you have to get an adapter that will allow you to put a filter on it. It is it's a 2.8 all the way through, so it's a fixed vertical, fixed lens, not a. If it was a variable lens, it would be say 3.5 at 15 millimeters and 4.6 at 30. So because it's 2.8 all the way through, it doesn't matter what filter you're in, and it's almost the perfect stream lens.
Oh, wow.
Because if it was 15 to 35 millimeters, like 35 is considered almost photography staple, like the Nipsey 50. Which is one of the reasons I don't really need a 35. I mean, unless I was shooting low light at a concert, I really wouldn't need. I do plan to buy some more primes, but I'm gonna keep an eye out for the used stores. And if I can find a film camera or someone who's getting rid of their old film camera and they've got a bunch of lenses with the body. Generally, if I need 35 millimeters, I go to my 24 to 70.
Right. And you can really zoom in really well with that, right?
Even as long as I have I now have on this lens, I've got 24 to 70. And so the 50 to 30, the 24 to 70, and this is at 70 to 200. It's considered the holy trinity of lenses because it literally. Now the focal difference may vary a little bit compared to the Nikon native class. One might be 6 feet focal distance versus 4 feet. But between the 15 to 30, the 24 to 70, and the 70 to 200, even if I don't take my big 200, 500 out with me, I essentially have a true range of 50 to 200 millimeters at my disposal.
That's
Just the
really
three
impressive.
lenses. And with as long as I have one lens on the body, and I can put my single flash, which is this one. It will fit on the outer pocket of my bag in one of the expandable sleeve things. I've got a remote I've got a little plastic foot that I can screw the flash to and sit it on something, or I can put the flash on my tripod if
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to, so I can do flash off body. Um, and yeah, I can, between those three lenses and my speed light, I can pretty much do any event I come across on the fly, which is really nice because the market is very saturated and people with their phones are getting very good at it.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm. Oh, for
have
sure.
to,
People
you
are
have
people are asking for your Instagram, Ellen. Can I share it on the chat?
yes, absolutely. It's Spirit Road
Yeah. So I found
71.
it here. I think this is the one. I'm gonna share that right now. It's f pictures on Instagram. I've got the link here. I think it pasted the
Yeah,
link
it's
properly. I'm not sure if it pasted the link properly, or maybe we'll get Birdie to do it if it didn't. If the link didn't paste properly, I'll get Birdie to do it.
Yeah.
We will make sure that we'll post it on Twitter because
Yeah.
this evening it is not posting correctly on YouTube, and we'll
Okay.
fix that in the future. Thank
Okay. The other thing, Alan, I didn't know if you wanted to switch gears and talk about your
Yeah.
tiny homes now or not.
Yeah. Alan,
yeah, I think we should
yeah.
we
We'd
should
like
move
to
on to
hear.
that. I'm just going to make sure that I send Neil my Instagram link
Sure.
here, and then that should we can share that too. I use TikTok too, but just more for boredom. Because there's some funny stuff on there, but it does allow me to upload a bunch of still photos, put some music on it, which is pretty much what I do. Um, Using TikTok, and then if there's a bunch of quite a many advocates for disabilities on TikTok. So like Melissa, if I can't say her name right, and I don't want to get it wrong. Am I saying that right? She's on TikTok, on Twitter as well. Um, I think I teamed her up to the group, but I don't think she's coming to the group pre-Christmas. Defoe. Um, anyway, she was doing all the advocacy through her group regarding what Doug Ford had planned for ODSP as far as downloading to the US for that. So she was doing a lot of that. She had a whole bunch of notes and stuff, and a lot of work, and she put a lot of time into that. As far as letting people know what that the Ford government had wanted to offload disability employments to a U.S. company that was popular in England. And if you couldn't, if the company would assess whether you were, if you were able to work and what kind of job you could do, and then you would be plugged in. The idea was that you'd be teamed up and assessed, so you could work at a car wash, or this disabled person could work at a restaurant. This one could do janitorial, and if your disability got in your way of doing that job, this American company could report back that you failed to hold your job or that you had to quit, and you could actually lose your benefits. So it was. Anyway, it's one of the ways. I mean, Doug Ford has found so many underhanded ways of. He's now got it so that people on ODSP now have to sign into my benefits once a month.
I heard about that.
And report whether they had left Ontario for 30 days. Talk about a digital bracelet. I mean, I don't know what that is. Anyway, I didn't want to get into that, but
I'm glad that you brought that up, though, Alan, because that reminds me of like when you're little kids, right? You go, can I go to the washroom, please? I need to go to the washroom. may I go? But you know what?
Yeah.
And the teacher used to tell me, Brent, you know what? You need to go to the washroom. Please don't keep asking me, and just go to the washroom. Just go.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So yeah.
But now
But
now if you fail to log into your My Benefits on a regular once-a-month basis to say whether you had left Ontario or someone in your household had, they could put your benefits on hold.
oh my gosh,
This is what's
that's
causing everybody to go, what if I don't have any way to log into my
what if they don't have a
what if
cell phone
Imagine,
even if you had a cell
or
phone,
internet
if you were on prepaid Freedom or whatever, Telus or Chatter, you
right?
might not have data.
Or maybe you don't have any internet service. You know, I mean, how are you supposed to log in?
If you're highly in a mobile, and it's there's 6 feet of snow out there. Are you really going to trek to the bus, jump on a bus, go to a library to get Wi-Fi so that you can log in?
Or let alone they don't even give enough on the whole check amount to go anywhere. I mean, wow.
I know it's policing.
It's just bonkers to me. It just doesn't make any sense.
The thing that doesn't get enough airplay for me when you talk about disability rates and all the rest of it is this idea, like the whole idea of personal autonomy. Gets, I mean, it's so important, right? And it gets lost on so many discussions if you're talking about to politicians or whatever. It's like personal autonomy doesn't register with them, right? But I mean, it's so important. It's like you said, it's like, can I please go to the washroom? Well, I mean, if you just give somebody the power to say, it's okay, you can go to the washroom, or you can go to the grocery store and you can buy your own food rather than go to a food bank or something. I mean, the personal autonomy is so big.
The freedom of movement is so important.
Yeah.
I think what they should do, like if they're going to be serious in pursuing this to the point where you must, report back, there should be an automated 1-800 number that you can at least call, type in your benefit number, and push 1 for yes or 2 for no on a question, and have the automated thing say, thank you for calling in. That way, if you can't get into your benefits because your internet's down or you weren't able to keep it up and running, you can at least report without being penalized because of something that happened. Anyway,
well, Alan,
let's get on to...
Yeah, here's another thought, and then we're going to go on talk about tiny homes, but I could maybe train a bird to fly and just kind of parachute down a little note into the office and say, hey, there you go.
little carrier pigeon.
Yeah. So, Alan, I'd like to hear a lot about your passion, about the tiny homes. I think that is the way to go forward. I think it's about this.
We're at a point where we're not going. If a tiny homes was the solution, we're at the point where we're saying, when will a tiny home be a solution? The caveat, I suppose, is that a lot of wealthier individuals, people that could have afford a $400,000 house, 10 years ago, have said, you know what? I don't want the rat race. I don't want to be working 50 hours a week just so I can afford to vacuum my living room. And they've got to the point where they've chosen to sell out that white elephant, get whatever they could back, and then flip it into a tiny home.
Well, but the cost of rents that are so high right now too, right? And the amount of populations coming into Canada every year, I think tiny
economically, I don't have my phone. Economically, this is a sponge, and we still have this
Mm-hmm.
drip. And the problem is now that not only is the sponge so full
Mm-hmm.
that it can't be squeezed out, but
Yeah.
it's being pushed down by another sponge which is already been, and this trickle down economics hasn't worked for the last 10 years, and they're
No.
still trying it. And it's part of the capitalistic
Yeah.
point of
In
view.
building smaller ones and building more homes, smaller, tiny homes, you're going to get a lot more people into them. And what your take about making them accessible or like
Well,
eco-friendly also?
I think I think a lot of tiny homes that they're built um, at the right size. Um, there's so many different options as far as the tiny homes go. I mean, they have these doors now that you can open as a single door,
Hmm.
or it's this big pane of glass and you just accordion it against
Hmm.
one wall and accordion the other door. So if the tiny home has two glass doors, you can literally just flatten them so it's one big open
Hmm.
space, and then have what do you call it, a fabric sunshade, the thing that people have on the used to have on the house and crank it out awning, and you have an awning, and all of a sudden you have an indoor outdoor space. So you can have a very gentle ramp built up to a deck that
Yeah.
can be taken down if the tiny home has to be removed.
Moved. Yeah. So,
Um,
yeah.
you could have a deck that has a wheelchair accessible ramp that just comes up to the deck, and the
Hmm.
rest of the deck's fenced off, and the deck is flat with the doors, and you have a sliding glass door that can be automated. Someone in a wheelchair just pushes a button.
Yeah.
They,
Push that
they,
little button on it and it just opens right up.
it just opens, and
Yeah.
maybe
Mm-hmm.
they've to unlock the door. They've used their phone.
Yeah.
They've done the Face ID. They've gone to their home kit. They pushed open door. They've clicked on an icon, and all of a sudden they come up from their ramp, which was brought up by their phone.
Yeah.
They're in
Or
their apartment. They've said, Siri, close my door, turn on my
Siri. Yeah. Or
lights.
Siri, turn my lights on.
Yeah, I do that. I
Yeah.
do that. I can do that right now, though it would mess up because with Siri, when I if I'm too close to my Mac or I'm too close to my phone,
Hmm.
both will answer. It's really funny. They'll compete with each other. But
Mm-hmm.
I can as long as my lights are connected to my home kit, I can say I can be downstairs by the
Reminder for Neil that he's not muted.
but I could be at the front door and go, oh crap. Before I turn the hallway light off, lock the door and leave the house, I just realized that I put my shoes on, my coat's on, my backpack's on, and I left my lights in my room on. I can go, hey Siri, turn off my lights. And
Hmm.
it'll go, okay, your lights are turned off. And I've got it set to an automated to come on at 5 p.m. So
Oh.
if someone in long-winded, if someone's in a tiny home and they have, physical therapy or whatever, and
No, it's fine.
they know by the
Just
time that.
just a reminder to Neil that when that you weren't muted there. Just wanted to make.
So by the time, Brent, that they know they're in what their routine is. I go to my physiotherapy. My handicap driver takes me to the local hospital for my inpatient OT,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm at home by 4 p.m. Well, I can set my lights to turn on at 3:45
Yeah. Turn the heat on
p.m.
or lights on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And they can schedule the heater. They can schedule if it's a hot day. They can have their air conditioner started up
Turn the fans
by
on.
by by 3:30, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they can if they have to use the ramp, they just roll in there and then they push a button. And then
Or have it
they've
brew the
got
coffee. You can even turn the coffee. You know, I mean, a lot of these have automated
well,
coffee.
right? So they can get
Turn
out
the
of
stove
their
on or something.
van. They can get in their van and they can go, Siri, unlock and open my door. So if it's raining and they've got a bunch of groceries, they get into the ramp. It brings them up to level of the open house. They can't access the door to open it. So it's already open. They could just roll into the grocery store like drown out, right?
Well,
We've all done.
here's one for you, Alan. I mean, hey Siri, boil up the pot of spaghetti. Well, Fred, you didn't tell me what to put in there. It's empty. Oh no.
Right? There you go. But
Yeah.
we have, and whether it's Alexa through Google or it's Siri through Apple, um, there's so much AI automation now that we didn't even have 10 years ago that makes tiny living almost easy to do. I mean, if you can get home and make a pot of macaroni and cheese, in a regular house, you can almost do it just as easy in a tiny home. As long as the tiny home is built where the kitchen is set up so that you can get up and down it in a wheelchair or a walker. I
Yes.
mean, maybe you have to have it designed so everything for the kitchen's on one wall and not the other.
Right.
And you have your table flips down from the wall, and then your bed is on a cable system that sits over the couch, comes down to level, and it's attached by
Bring it down.
it's attached by both sides of the home, so it hangs up in the ceiling, and you bring it down, or if you can't, so that you're not restricted to. You might have a loft at one end for a guest, but you're not climbing any ladder, especially if you're in a wheelchair or use a walker to get to bed. You just push a button and down the bed comes, and you're up and running, and your shower's accessible and stuff. And
automation is definitely good. I mean, it can be definitely helpful.
That's definitely, and of course, if you're not in a wheelchair and you just don't like climbing up in lofts, you have the option of Murphy beds, and you can have your bathroom, you can have your kitchen. I've seen it done where the kitchen and the living room are all on one or two steps up, and you literally, this lady pushes a button, and that kick step that she steps up to into her living room or her kitchen, literally a bed just slides right out.
Oh wow!
Because it was underneath the floor of the living room, kitchen. So you could have that. Yeah, I mean, if you're living alone, as long as you have a decent mattress, and you got at least 11.
My dad's brother. My dad has a brother. He lives in Grand Forks, and he's big on tiny homes. Actually, he made his own tiny home because he's very much into environment and all the rest of it. But I mean, for somebody with a disability, particularly in a wheelchair, that would always be my concern. Is when you talk about tiny homes, I mean, the perception is that it's tiny, and we all know that if you're in a wheelchair, you need the space to maneuver your wheelchair and move around.
Well, you'd have to work with a designer, with the person you built the company, and say, listen, I'm in a wheelchair. I need to be able to get out of my house. In my house, I need to be able to turn my wheelchair in either direction. I don't want to be going upstairs. I can't climb the ladder. Everything's got to be on one floor.
Yeah, but we have to turn around and kind of,
Well, yeah. So their living room is the living room is their center point. Maybe it's
Center
with
of
the
the house.
and those accordion windows or doors that can be automated can really play the part
Sure.
in that
Yeah.
in that role. So as I said to Brent earlier, they pick
Great.
up their phone, whether it's an Android or Apple, and they tell their assistant to open the door as they're coming up the ramp. The elevator, or they're rolling up they're rolling up their accessible ramp to their tiny home, and it's all non-skid, so they can't roll back, and they're on the they're on the deck, they're in the house, and the living room is set up in such a way that they can turn their wheelchair to go one way or to go the other.
What's your opinion on you've heard of boxcar houses or rail car houses?
The container
houses. What's your opinion on those?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's essentially
some of them are double stack too.
I've seen those double stack as well. Yeah.
Or dual, like a duplex, which is even better.
You could do it. If you're looking down, you can do a 40-foot going one way and a 20 hanging over, and then there's a staircase above somewhere in that. You could literally have it where there's two 40s side by side and a 20 taking up half of it, pointing the other direction. So you get like this upside down L kind of two level with a deck, and they don't. There's some people keep the doors on them, and some take them off, and they put a big L shape of glass, because as long as the container home is structural. I've seen people where they built almost a hybrid of a traditional house style with the container home integrated into that space. So they'll have a 40-foot tiny home, 40-foot container, and then it's being cut and open and structurally welded, and they've got this almost open concept of the original house design style of building around it. So,
you see, out here, Alan, they've used for like the tiny homes type of deal, like the containers, and they actually made them look like an apartment building. They've actually put all the stuff on the side. You can't even tell that they're actually, containers, and they actually put a separate area they built on, so, and an elevator to go up too. It's quite impressive.
Yeah.
They have I saw a tiny home that I couldn't even tell it was a tiny home until they panned around, because it was a I think it was one of these guys that does he reviewed Airbnbs. First saw it, I'm looking at the entrance side with the swinging hanging chairs, and the deck, the roof was on a 45-degree slant. So all you can see is these windows, these posts, and then they pan around and you realize that what they've done is they put a container home and they've done this pitch roof to overhang both sides of both ends of the table. So the back end, using the kitchening area, the fire pit, but it's the jacuzzi and everything are under the overhang from that hangs over. So I don't have a box here, but if you would imagine, it would be like kind of that when the roof is pitched.
Oh, okay.
So both the front and the back of the immediate tiny home are actually covered, and and the roof overhangs, so you could literally walk around the entire container home.
You could do quite more
if you had-
universal. Like you could do a lot of stuff with them then. Like
Well,
really
everybody talks
Yeah.
about open concept too, and I mean, how much
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
open concept can you be than an empty container, right?
Exactly. It's so much universal. You can do so much with that.
Yeah.
The other way to go is some people take a 40-foot tiny home, they'll put a deck, and then they'll L shape another tiny home, another container home, a shorter one, or the same length in the other direction. So when you walk up your steps, you can go into one tiny home, one container home, and the bedrooms and everything are in the second one. So the living space is in one container, and the bedrooms and the bathroom are in the other. I saw one person that had a container home, and it looked like a mini bungalow with a little swimming pool. What the couple had done was they built this 2-bedroom tiny home with their own little swimming pool. They fenced it off, and then they were renting the house as that they had lived in before they built the tiny home as extra income. So they had put an entrance onto the house, onto the sidewalk, so it was completely like isolated from the house they actually owned. So instead of going, okay, why are we heating this out? It's 1,500 square. Believe it that that's the three of us don't use half the rooms in. We just rented to a bigger family, and they had everything they needed. So there's so many different versions of it. Tiny home.
Sounds like there a lot of options.
The earth homes. There's these tree house tiny homes that I've seen. There's container homes. There's the A-frame style tiny home cabin where it looks like a capital letter A, and you can do quite a lot with those too. I mean,
well, especially with the building, Alan.
Obviously, it's going to be a pretty narrow on the second floor, but if your A-frame tiny home maybe has has a space on the main floor that's jetted out to one side, so you see a lot of those A-frames and then have like another building integrated into the A-frame at the base of the thing. So it's not just an A-frame, but it's got living space off both sides and a deck on both sides. Then maybe you don't need the second floor. You could do it as a mini loft with a ladder. But most people will make their A-frame tiny homes, cottages, big enough to put a double bed up there, and some of them have a bathroom.
Well, like with the building material so expensive these days. I mean, finding different innovative ways, like using container boxes, or like shipping boxes, or there's so many ways. Yeah, it's interesting. What's your view on that?
Like DIY, you mean full-grown DIY? Those are interesting. Obviously, people are a lot handier than I am.
I mean, you still have to have the land. You still have to have the land to put it on, though, right? So
a lot of people will put out an ad on social media and they'll say, "I'm sort of 60% of the way through building my tiny home, and I'm pretty handy around the property. Is there anybody that would mind giving me a quarter of your lot, and I would be willing to feed the ducks, and, help with the chickens and cut the lawn, and help with
pluck the eggs,
with whatever, milking the cows, whatever
milk the cows, yeah,
whatever is needed, so that they can, if you're running on a tight budget, you become you look for a farm that that's looking for extra hands, and then maybe you you might have to bite to work for the first month, and then you sort of take if you have a good rapport with the family, you take them aside and you go, you wouldn't have I have be an owner of a tiny home, and I got it sitting at a friend's house right now, but if you had some space on the farm where I could put my tiny house, I'd be able to stay here a lot more, and you could go away if you wanted to, and feed me to making sure that the jobs around the farm are done, or I could be on site a lot better. So maybe this is something we could work out. So that helps out, especially if it's an older couple, and then it's not really a functioning farm anymore. But
Right. It's a small little hobby farm kind of.
Mom and Dad can't be hopping on. Dad's getting into his 70s and jumping on the lawn tractors. That's a little hard for him to do.
Yeah, just that lawnmower,
Actually, one of the things that was in the news a little while ago is there's, and this is changing topic a little bit, but not really, as there's been more and more talk about co-ops, co-op living, and I think that's a really apparently in the 60s and 70s, co-ops were huge. Like even here in BC, I don't know about Toronto or Ontario.
Oh, they would.
But they invested a ton in co-ops.
In Toronto, I think there's about at least 6 or 7 co-ops in throughout Toronto, especially in the east end of. I think there was a co-op in Mimico, which is down by the X. Dan would know more where the co-ops started than I would. My co-op was sort of central to the Bloor Wellesley College Park area, but there was like 2 or 3 others within 15-minute walking distance. And there was one in far east of where I was, east of Parliament, which is you're getting almost into the beaches end of the city, and so they're around.
They were huge out there.
There's a lot more co-ops in the outer parts of Toronto, like Mississauga and Oakville, and some of the co-ops are. I think in once in Mississauga or Port Credit, there's some of the co-ops are women only co-ops that they literally are like a women's only co-op.
They're more like a community based, like it's more.
But the co-op will sometimes. All co-op was kind of mixed. It was mostly families, but there were a lot of single individuals that were part of the LGBTQ community in our co-op and that were on our board. So it was a pretty open mix. You had a couple young couples that were both teachers at different various schools and stuff. So our co-op was quite diverse.
And that it kind of reminds you of.
But they have been
kind of like tiny homes, though. Like that, it gives you that community feel.
I think that's something you could see. Coming into. Really, the federal government needs to create a tiny home.
Well, the federal government used to be so involved in the housing supply. I mean, in the 60s and 70s, they were making tons, right?
Huge.
I mean, the federal government was all over it, and all of a sudden, like in the 80s and 90s, it all went away. It was like, we don't have to build any more homes anymore.
They walked away. I guess people don't need homes. I guess.
And it just kind of sucks, I think if the government got back into the business of making homes, you'd end up solving so much of your problems right now.
What's that one? Field of Dreams, build it, and they will come.
Yeah,
right.
Imagine that.
I think they need to. I think they need to think of new ways to do it. But they definitely need to get back in the game. They should have never got out of.
No,
It's
I
a
know.
table they should never have walked away from.
Hmm.
You know, and they should have got back and they should have been plowing through the early 2000s. I think we would have had a different outcome than we do now.
Yeah, they would have just continued on and keep that going, but they deregulated the housing market way back. I guess they figured that, I guess people weren't going to need to live for
Well, I mean, when I was living in
not enough
Toronto,
population.
when I was living in Toronto from '08 to 2015, Trudeau had just come had just beat Harper. Just about that time, I moved out of Toronto in September of 2015 or August of 2015. Yes, I think it was August. It was almost 7 years to the day that I had arrived in Toronto. So, but I think when I was in Toronto, the federal Conservatives were in power, and Harper was interested in putting ads on the sides of bus terminals, bus stops, and GO trains and stuff than he was the housing market.
Right.
And I think well, I mean, I can't speak to it, but I think if Trudeau had come in power, the Liberals or the NDP had been in power when it was Harper in power, we would have seen a different outcome from the housing market, because the Conservatives have no interest in doing anything social. It's they never have been. We can't expect a white cat to turn fully black when it's maybe going to have white spots. It's a white cat. That's what it is. We need to
they had over 500.
It's a bad analogy,
Okay.
but we can't hope that a black Labrador is going to suddenly become a white terrier. It's going to be a black Labrador. That's what it is. So a lot of people have this expectation that when a new party comes in, that things that the grass is going to be greener. But
The miracle is going to happen. Yeah, that all of a sudden, poof.
It's not.
No.
And we can't expect anyone who is conservative to.
It's like that carrot trick, here's.
Well, yeah, they'll do it for votes,
right?
but I think in society we think that, well, he's a conservative, but he's not like Harper was, so maybe something better will happen. He's still conservative. He has an ideology. That's why he's in that party.
Well, the part that baffles me is that they know that the housing needs to be built, and like over 500,000 people are coming in. That came in last year, and they're saying, 400,000 and something. Next year, 500 and something thousand. It's like, hello, and then they go, oh no, we got a housing problem. Really? Tiny homes. It's like they wait till there's a crisis, and they go, uh-oh, we got a problem, Houston. We got a problem here.
And that's what's so annoying is that if they never got out of the game in the 60s and 70s, if they stayed in the game, I mean, we'd be so much further ahead, right?
Yeah, and then they say,
the tiny nomadic lifestyle that really blew up into something really powerful during the pandemic lockdown. Really, that's when it. Because everybody was isolated at home, so people were buying up a van on a utility van that had nothing in it, a shell with an engine, basically. And all of a sudden, you started seeing Joe and Jenny's YouTube channel about how their van was gonna, and every week they would have an episode of where they are in their van, and then they would have episodes on how the van was, how living in the van was this and that. And then you had other people who were doing coach buses, and they would
Yeah, I
buy
was
a
just
tour.
gonna say, a coach bus. I saw that photo that you put. There was a coach bus, and they just completely gutted it out and put countertops in there. And
I saw a picture of
Yeah,
that too.
yeah.
Yeah, there's
Hey, how about Greyhound bus? Maybe you can probably use those.
yeah.
Use it more.
Transit bus.
Yeah.
I think I would use if I had the ability
toilet
to
in the
do it,
back.
I would do one of those shuttle buses that they used to run people. It's more like a long van, so it's got the height, but it would maybe be like 28 feet rather than a schoolie that's like 35 to 40 feet. These would just be just a little bit under. Because the longer, if you're talking about a sprinter van, the longest wheelbase I think is the 120-inch wheelbase between the center of the wheels, and that's just the length of them. I forget how they measure it, but
especially with the buses, though, Alan, like it's how they're decked out. It's like, especially a tiny, it'd be like a kind of like a tiny home, right? So now they'll say, well, what address are you at now? Well, I'm at street number. Oh, hang on, there you are.
But a lot of people with sprinter vans now, because especially I think in the States, that or certain neighborhoods that Walmart's the only way you can't stay overnight in the parking lot. Depending on what municipality you live in, no overnight camping, and so a lot of folks make their sprinter van as stealthy as they can, so that they can park it on the side street, get a park permit. The van looks almost like a business van. I like those trucks, UPS trucks, so much. They're big and square, but you can have steel flaps that can lift up with using gas shocks, and the windows can be hidden behind those. You just make the van so stealthy. Even if you keep the back, you just roll it up. There's a glass sliding window that has a lock on it, and that's your entrance, right? Or you just have a big window when you roll up the back thing, but it's all sealed off. That's just like a bedroom window, right? But you enter your tiny home through that front door where the driver would sit. Maybe behind your back seat, you got a door that goes into your key box, man, and you use a Murphy bed and a kitchen, and you got, I've seen tons of them. Like,
you could have a curtain up there, or
the windows are hidden by a grate.
Well,
or they got solar on the roof, and they got like glass.
The solar panels,
cool. On the roof, yeah.
Solar panels are neat too. I've seen a lot of them around.
I like between them. You could make one of those old UPS trucks, wheelbase truck, very stealthy, and paint it dark gray, and maybe put a coffee logo, or have
there you go.
Woody Woodpecker painted on the side. They think you're an artist or something, and you get yourself a city permit. I think we're in Toronto, $100.
They put fast 50 photos in there.
Yeah, I could literally
just lose their allies.
I could a picture of lens on the back of the camera.
Yeah.
Right.
Put the camera on there. Yeah.
Nobody would know it was even a tiny home in there. I've got the height. Yeah, and I just literally unlock my door, slide my driver's door open, or my passenger door, because I've got no seat.
Exactly. Yeah.
I
You got some
got
great
a
ideas
seat
happening there.
on the side, and I enter my van if I need to through the right side by sliding the pocket door open, and I've got the door to my and when it's all closed off, and I'm in there, I can go with, because it's all metal, I can go with magnetic blankets that fit through the windows, and they're heated and insulated and blackout. I got, if I need a bit of natural light while I'm working from my van, I've got, besides the solar, I've got a couple of roof windows, and I could prop up one of my seats awnings if I want to have sit outside when I'm not sitting. I literally can keep one of the flaps open, and I've got open windows, and I've got an AC unit on the back windows. Um, they're a heater and an air conditioner unit. They don't take up much space. You just put it in the back of the van, and it's not hard to do. But if you need to be moving around the city, as long as you've got a parking permit, you pay. Okay, so I don't have to really pay any rent anywhere.
Oh yeah.
I make 1,500 a month. That's not great. Could it be more? Sure, but if you're looking for remote from your vehicle, and you're only paying $100 for a parking permit, and maybe another 150 for your Wi-Fi. You use Rogers or Telus using a USB stick or a Starlink or whatever, and all of a sudden you still get $1,000 at the end of the month after you pay the groceries. So
Or you find some Wi-Fi signal somewhere and then you hook into it in the city. Hotspot.
Well, yeah, but there's ways around it.
Oh yeah.
And then you put some. You can buy these toolbox kits if your truck doesn't come with. Remember, the school buses would have those, or the Greyhound buses would have the part where they put all the suitcases right underneath the bus. Well, you could buy those lockers and have them welded in. It's not the most of those trucks. The outer shell hangs a lot lower than the actual truck itself, just so that so the truck doesn't lift when it's under power, right? They cut the drag force down, so the frame of the truck is actually quite far off the ground by 2 to 3 feet. So even though the sides of and the nose of the truck are low to the ground, you can actually cut out the lower portion of the sides and have those storage boxes put in and welded in.
Yeah, you could.
And a lot of people put their they'll put their tools in one and maybe their barbecue in the other, and on the other side they have
or anything in there.
Yeah, they have a locker for their inverter and all their solar panel batteries and stuff under one. Propane, whatever. So
storage bins. You put some clothing and stuff in the bins and stuff underneath.
Yeah, stuff that you wouldn't if you all year round. You have a Tupperware, a Rubbermaid under the couple slimmer ones that you don't have to have every single such of clothing in the van itself.
Exactly. Just grab what you need underneath.
And worst case scenario, what do? You go to U-Haul and you rent a small locker in a city that you're constantly going to be in. Maybe you've got family in Winnipeg. So you know that you're going to be traveling around between Winnipeg and Vancouver. So that winter stuff, even if you're focusing on an apartment building, they can install it for you. And someone go, hey, mom and dad, I've got a locker here, the keys, can you go make sure that my locker hasn't been broken into, or go and spray some of that silver stuff that to keep any bugs, out of my locker, make sure I'm not getting bed bugs, whatever. And you put all your stuff in plastic garbage bags inside of a Tupperware, tape it up so the bugs can't really get into your belongings. And
Exactly.
and if you really don't need to hold on to a dresser.
No. Nope.
It's gone. Someone will buy it on marketplace. So you can.
Is there any questions coming in there at all, Neil?
We do have one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could go to see if there's any
question.
You can go ahead, Bertie, and mention the question.
This was from Jennifer, because Alan, you have spoken about this in the past, but it hasn't come up tonight. Jennifer was asking, can you lease property to have a tiny home? It would be awesome to long-term lease, then build a community to do rental for tiny homes. That would be a good investment, right? We've seen it like in the Kenora area in Ontario, but have you seen that happen yourself, Alan?
I haven't anywhere around me, but that's not to say that it's not happening. And I think it was Mandeville was saying. Is his name David? I'm pretty bad with names. But I think he was saying in the Kitchener or Waterloo Guelph area there's something to do with tiny homes. I'm still kind of learning as I go where it's popping up and where it's not. In the States, I know that these tiny home communities are really picking up, but they're going crazy. And a lot of these mobile trailer parks are starting to open their doors to people that want to rent a spot. And so the community becomes kind of a mix of the old and the new. Some people will have their mobile homes from the 50s or 60s, and then next to it will be a brand new little tiny house. And it's working out really, really well. Apparently, it's going quite smoothly, and it's breathing new life into what might be a rundown trailer park that isn't getting upkept and
trailer park
nice. All of a sudden, what might have been a forgotten trailer park is rejuvenated, and these trailer parks have gotten painted again, and they're people putting little gardens and stuff,
Yeah. So idea as a trailer park.
Trailer park, trailer, tiny home.
Get somebody in.
Tiny home, trailer, tiny home, trailer, and it's becoming that's becoming a big thing in
community,
in the States.
Small community, yeah.
And so people with tiny homes are going to these existing trailer parks, which were kind of like looked up the nose at, and they're saying, "Hey, I've got a tiny home. I'm willing to, if your rent's decent for a spot, I'll pay all exclusively. That gives me access to electricity, water, and I'll rent a spot, and they know that they can stay there." And that they're safe because it's a gated community of sorts. And what you start seeing is the owner of the trailer park, who might have forgotten about it, just collected his $500 or $800 a month rent, but not put any. Is suddenly having the roads in the trailer park repaved, and people that own the trailer parks are starting to go to Home Depot and putting new shutters, new window dressings, and all of a sudden a rundown trailer is starting to look really sharp and cute. like it was brand new because it's next to a brand new tiny home. So yeah, you end up with this balance. It's like if you buy a brand new washing machine, but your dryer is 15 years old. Well, what's the next step? It's to replace
Yeah.
the dryer with a unit that looks just like the brand new washer that you bought. You might have to wait a year to do it, but eventually you end up, once you buy one, you're probably going to buy the matching one to go with it. So you end up with it. This is what's happening in these. This is
Wow.
what's happening in these trailer parks across the states. Ones that are in like Florida, or they're in South Central Texas, and all of a sudden you're starting to see the tiny home community is lifting the trailer park out of obscurity. And all of a sudden, the trailer park is this really cute little community.
Well, Alan, there's a lot of places that are getting built now. They're actually building them like very tiny, like 499 square feet. So that's kind of the way to go. I mean, it's that kind of shows that tiny homes is needed, because obviously, it's
I think the mindset is. I think the mindset. So what really frustrates me is when these big companies are building these micro homes, but they're still charging $350K for them.
Yeah.
It's like I'm getting 800 square feet. Like everything is stacked, or it's like 2,200 a month, and you've got like maybe 8 feet width of space that's stacked.
Oh yeah.
So we have to watch for what, and was always my gripe with the government. Oh, it's affordable housing, but affordable for what? Affordable for what tax bracket?
Yeah,
because
for who? Yeah.
If someone's making $40,000
or $500,000, then maybe it's affordable to them.
Well, again, this is a little bit off topic, but not really. Is that, I mean, even when I was looking to buy a house, like when I bought this place, this is like 18 years ago. Then I bought into this back when I had money, anyway, we bought into this place. But one of the options was there was a few places in the Surrey area that they had leases on. It was a lease on the building, and so you didn't. If you bought into it, you would buy into it for, say, $100,000, and you would basically own the building, but not the land. And so it's the owner. It's the owner that you would get the lease from, and it would be like a 100-year lease. It's a 100-year lease, and for a 100-year lease, they would sign over the property for $100,000 or something. Like that's what we were looking at. But again, you don't actually own the land. You just own the right to the house, to the building, right, or the house. And so we looked into that. But as long as you're not looking at housing as an investment, like that's where I can see housing kind of coming. Is like, let's, if people that have the money, if they want to invest in the land, that's fine. But turn over the land and build houses on it. Like if the government wants to get it back into the business of making houses, for example, they can purchase the land and then just build houses for people. And it's like, then it's not like a for-profit thing. It's not like I'm as a person living there, I'm not necessarily profiting on it. I'm just living there, right? It's the government. It's the government that's going to be making the money on it.
So almost like a crown property.
Exactly.
Yeah, not for profit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One of the things I think I saw was interesting. I had to go to a live gig a couple Saturdays back, and my friend Keith was driving, and he ended up turning down the wrong way. We were in Niagara Falls, so we're kind of like doing this little S's, trying to figure out where Lundy's Lane was again to get back on track. And we found it, but we started driving down the street where all the motels were, the single And a lot of them were still in pretty good shape, but some of them were pretty run down. You know, the Cadillac Star Motel, you know, it was missing a few shingles and some of the paint was chipped, you know. You could tell that just by passing it. The weeds were coming. And I thought, you know what? If you could buy up one of those hotels that needed a lot of TLC, pave it, make it really cute, maybe instead of a parking lot, you do the cobblestone and you turn it into a green space with umbrellas and stuff. So there's actually like really maybe no parking on the motel itself. But you turn each little unit into a little apartment with its own little kitchen and it's all bright in there, and then you kind of you do what so many have done, which is some might Airbnb it, but instead of Airbnb it, you're turning a tired motel that maybe isn't picking up the traffic because the Sheridan Falls over the falls has and some of the bigger motels that have weathered the storm a little bit better have really stolen the thunder. So in a summer town that isn't really getting any traffic because the other hotels have swallowed up its income stream, you recycle the motel into 1-bedroom units with their own little kitchen.
Interesting.
And you just go around and you know, you got all these companies like Wayfair and IKEA and HomeSense.
Well,
just to FYI to Neil that your screen size changed.
Did it?
Yeah, just there's gonna be a little lag time on YouTube to catch up to that, and yeah, now it's fixed. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just curious, do we have any other questions in the group?
And also just to make an announcement, we're about 12 minutes out from closing out the show, so we're going to close at 6 o'clock, which is 12 minutes away. So anybody have last minute questions in? We're going to take
if you bring your questions forward to us, and we'll fire them away.
I was going to say, Alan, that here in BC, the government here has actually bought a couple of hotels, right? They bought a couple of run-down hotels here and housed some homeless people.
They bought a really nice, beautiful boutique hotel in Victoria. Actually, one of the ones I used to actually go to when I visited Victoria. Now I live in Victoria. But it was my favorite go-to place, Neil. I mean, it was Sonia's parents stayed there. Like, well, you know where we could stay? I go, yeah, I know a nice hotel. And so they would stay there, and then of course now the government bought it up. They actually lost a couple of units in the building. They had to go and retrofit them. So, yeah, I knew that was going to happen. Unfortunately, in a couple motels, but I am.
Well, I think if you could buy an old motel with maybe, I don't know what they got, 30 units in them generally. Is that about
30 or 40 maybe?
The L shape
30 or 40, depending on how big it is. But yeah.
Okay, so let's say it's 30 units. You say, okay, we're going to close this sucker down, and we're going to gut every unit. And when that opening, we'll put up a, you know, like they do when they dig up for a condo, they put up a big bullet. Big wooden, you make it, you seal that sucker off. You know, bulletin board higher than the actual motel, whether it's 2 stories or not. And you got it. You make it. You put a little garden in there. You put a gazebo. You instead of a paved thing, you do the cobblestone with the walkways, and you put little fountains and all that stuff. And you got the insides of them, and maybe to make them trick, you do, if you're not going to rent it as a hotel, you rent them as cute little apartments, or if you do want to rent them as a hotel again, you know, you give each room a little theme. So it's, you know, the yellow tree house, and it's very Hawaiian vibe, and then you have the nautical room with this kind of like sky blue, but all the colors are kind of like uplifting. So when people, and then
So
you
much
rent,
we don't.
they show on, and everything in the exterior. As soon as those boards come down, you maybe build a little cafe on the where some of the parking spots have been, and you know what I mean. You have a little cafe there in the parking lot, because generally those parking lots are pretty decent size.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, you can do a lot, a lot of add-ons to onto the facility for sure.
And all of a sudden you're taking what was an eyesore, and maybe that motel that people came to Niagara Falls and they realized that they were going to spend more time on money on Marineland or go to Canada's Wonderland or whatever than they could on the hotel. So instead of spending $150 a night at the Sheridan Falls, this place was $85 a night or $50 a night, because it's seen better days, and maybe you had to bang the air conditioner a couple times, and maybe you had to talk over the air conditioner. But those sort of forgotten motels, instead of it being that motel, all of a sudden it's this really cute little.
Make a nice big little community out of it for people.
Or if it's a unit for private, you renting a room.
Oh yeah.
Suddenly you can tell people, I live at the Stanley. I don't know, Stanley Way co-op, or whatever you want to call it. And you do the cute little arch with "Welcome to the Paradise Lagoon" or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Whatever you want to call it. And you do this cute. You have those lights across the hanging lights. And you can say, well, maybe you buy two motels that were side by side, and one is just not that, half of it's not that great. So you add it to the one that you're going to spruce up, and then the second one becomes the parking.
Yeah, just do some demolition on it, right? Just completely just take it down, and you could add on like a little cafe, like you mentioned, or
a garden, and you put a little playground in there, and then you put like a wooden gates that open to maybe the second one was run down, but the pool was in great shape, so the pool becomes the co-op, the little units, swimming pool, and the parking lot.
Yeah, I mean, you can put a daycare in there, you can put a playground in there, or anything. Yeah.
So it really I think there's a lot of room, instead of just going, oh, that's that Cedar motel. No one wants to go there,
Yeah. And a rundown place. I know that place.
It's all of a sudden, the shutters are white. There's a little plants hanging out.
Fabulous.
If you take a year and you literally close the place down, and you do the outside and you do the insides, and it's all of a sudden you're going to fill it fast. Whether you're renting it,
the demand would be there.
Whether you're renting it as one-bedroom units, or if you're Airbnb-ing it for tourists, it's gonna get occupied, and maybe you give university students a 10% discount if they, hey, are you a Brock student? Or whatever. Okay, instead of the rent being $600 a month, it's $550.
Yeah.
And anybody with a Brock University student card showing that they're, at the university, or maybe you make it for anybody that works at the casino, just come engage, come stay. So, team up with someone that wants to open their first restaurant, and they're looking for something quaint, small. So,
Yeah, I just wish the
We've seen
Oh, go ahead.
we've seen examples of tiny, like of business, small businesses starting up in something that is not much bigger than the 800 square feet, right, of a tiny home. I mean, like, if you look at the example of Kitchener that Alan had mentioned earlier, there was a great article about a community kitchen that started up that way.
Oh yeah, I mean, and there's not saying anything that you couldn't build a tiny home for a small business, like a little clothing store or something. That might be, or maybe a tiny home could be in your back property, and you work for as a hair salon.
You know what this reminds me of? You know what this reminds me of, Brent? Because I know you've been there too. Is Salt Spring Island, right?
Yes.
Salt Spring Island here in BC. Awesome place. What's great about it is that you can get a map. You can buy these maps at different places, and it's basically a community map of all the people's houses. They people have businesses in their houses, like little bakeries and stuff, and you just pull into somebody's house, and you can get like a loaf of bread or
you
can pull right to the end of their driveway.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Come right down. They'll come right down to there and meet you.
We went to Salt Spring, and there's so many little businesses on these little houses. It was really neat, really cool. Yeah.
And somebody in chat did just bring up the example of chip wagons, because again, right at farmers markets or places in need, they are able to go to where the people are and to work within a tiny space.
Well, I mean, supporting local businesses, tiny homes. I mean, things can change, right? And rather big corporations saying, "Oh, we're not making profits. No, we have our costs, right?" I'm thinking, come on, like, seriously? We all know, right? I talked to a local grocer, Alan and Neil Birdie. Like, I got a local grocer, like literally right across the road, from here, like a 1 minute walk. Prices are a little bit high, right? But there are a few things, and it reminds me of a tiny home, like a segment, because it feels like that community feel, like you're supporting that local small business. And I talked to them, and they keep their produce down in cost. Like, they've managed to bring it down cheaper than our local grocery stores, which I went to this afternoon, and the price difference, oh my, they literally $2.50 more for broccoli. I mean, just as an example.
I think these big corporations, and what's his name, Wes Galen, he's just sitting on his big house, just grinning ear to ear. And I'm just like, come on, Karma, you've been talking about doing something. Can't someone just leave his gas stove on and forget about it?
What bothers me is when they gloat.
I mean, I wouldn't wish anybody
$2 billion
burn down on them, but
no, but I mean, $2 billion of profits. Meanwhile, you have people like saying help, and then they're like, oh well, we're making 300% markup on each product. Well, gee.
Yeah.
So how many?
We've hit the 2 hour mark, guys.
Oh, okay.
So,
all right.
If we want to
how many people do we have in tonight?
Who did we have?
In the chat?
we had Jennifer, Dan, Mando Bear. We also had some of the regulars from Neil's channel, Epic Gamer, and we had Maxwell as well.
Wow.
Indicators on the YouTube is never exactly accurate, but at some point we had 8 people, just a number, but that's never.
Oh, it's growing. It's getting there, and
yeah, I think we get a lot of people watching this back. Because I know the same thing happened with Dan. He got a lot of traffic afterwards. After we aired this space, there was I think it was 170 people tuned in afterwards.
It tends to happen that way. And so, I want to encourage people, if you want to interact with it live, definitely tune into Neil Matheson's YouTube channel. And you'll catch up on the live feed episodes, and sometimes we may pre-record stuff where it's already just thrown on there. But when it's a live session, I really encourage people to, if you really want to interact with us and talk to our guests, our lovely Alan Davies here. Alan, I'm going to have you come back on again, and we'll talk more about tiny homes and your photography and your PWD advocacy, because it's so important to talk more about these awesome topics. And you're very passionate about your tiny homes, and I know about your photography too. And
well, I think I'll be doing another Twitter space on the nomadic thing. I just haven't decided if it's going to be this Friday or next Friday. I kind of don't want to do one every week because it's a niche segment, and people just go, oh, okay, how much do we really have to say about tiny homes? But I would like to do one where maybe people have viewed some tiny homes, and they've got some takeaway that they've taken away that applies to their day-to-day lives now. Whether it's a DIY project that they can do in their apartment or whatever, or maybe some step that they're taking towards a tiny home.
It's always great to hear other people's feedback on their views of tiny homes, and it gives them the something to look forward to tune into a segment when you're talking about stuff like that. And definitely we'll do this again. It's awesome having you.
I was trying to work with someone, I forget their name, and I wanted to do a proposal that could be taken to the banks and just say, someone who's on government assistance, it's a guarantee, could lock themselves in for 10 years, because if you figure rent, people on ODSP or Canadian pension are paying $1,000 a month.
Oh, easily.
Or easily for just a room, even.
Oh, yeah.
To $1,200. I'm looking at probably $1,200 just in Trenton, which is a small military-based town in Ontario. And if I'm looking at $1,200 a month, I'm saying, well, what does $1,200 a month? Everybody's got a calculator handy. I'll look weird if I'm doing it on my phone override, but if anybody could say, okay, well, $1,200 over 12 months times 10 years, how much is that? How much money are we throwing in a bucket to burn? And,
$1,200.
$100,440.
Okay, so
I think the government should give money to you and I, Brent.
Yeah, I think so.
They should give it to us, maybe $1 billion for us, and then we can distribute to how we see fit.
Well, they just have to stop. They have to stop.
I think my closing point was that if we could say to these big banks, TD, RBC, listen, this is where a person on a government assistance, whether it's at the federal level or the provincial level in their own province, is getting per month versus what the market rent is. And if they would agree to sign to a 10-year mortgage loan say 800 a month times 10 years. Give them a line of credit that they can get their tiny home, because in 10 years, even if you're only making 150 a month on that loan, so if they're paying 1,000, if they're paying 1,050, and but the principal of that is 900 or whatever. So they're paying 900 a month to the bank plus the interest, which works out to 1,050. You're still getting that 1,050, and in 10 years they're free. They don't.
Yeah.
They're not clogging up the nursing homes. They're not clogging up the hospitals. They'll still be able to feed themselves. They'll still be able to afford somewhere to rent their tiny home on. So maybe they're paying 500 to the bank and then 150 in interest. The rest of their living amount is going to the rental spot for their tiny home. So there's ways around it, because a tiny home can cost as low as 30,000. But if you want some of the bells and whistles for it, the stainless steel appliances, and the motion sensor shower and all that stuff, or some of the handicap devices, mobility devices, they may need for the wheelchair ramp and stuff. When they can find a relative or somewhere to put this tiny home, and all of a sudden it's one less person looking for an apartment because they've got a roof over their head. They just need somewhere that they can put it. And if there's a big enough need for it, maybe someone comes along and they create a tiny community that this person could put their land for and pay $200 a month for a spot for it. So there's ways around it, but I think we need to find a way, especially with the housing crisis being what it is, to
it's not going to get any better.
Banks in it. Sure. To approach the banks in a way to say, listen, they will pay this back. Lock them in for 10 years.
Yeah.
Give them an opportunity to take $120,000. Similar with the tiny home will go. Tiny home will go when it's completed its build, and so they're going, okay, I've got 110,000 to work with. I'm budgeting 70, maybe 80 for the tiny home to be completed with the changes and the modifications I need, and the other 30 to make sure I've got somewhere that and the transportation of the tiny home to that spot.
Almost definitely. I mean, there's something definitely to explore, right? Because the way that you mentioned, Alan, the way that
110,000 to a bank is nothing.
Yeah, it's nothing.
They're charging millions of people right now. Everybody gets charged. There's probably 1 million people that get charged $15 a month every month for bank fees.
Oh yeah, they got to get rid of those bank fees.
That bank at the minimum is making $15 million a month. Oh
yeah, they got to get rid of those bank fees too, right? I mean, that's just.
That's what I'm just saying, just based on their bank fees. If there's 20 million people in Canada that belong to TD, and they've got the TD's top tier bank account, checking account, they're getting 16. They're getting hit every month with $16 every month out of their account, which means the bank is taking $16 plus the 3 million people that clients it has, customers, and they're making a killing on the bank.
Oh, they are. I mean, well, they're making their money off of different loans, credit cards. I mean, you name it, bank fees. So they're not hurting. I mean, they've made record profits, just like the grocery store chains, right? I mean, they're gloating about it, right? The first quarter, second quarter, third, fourth. Wow.
I would like
some money, right? I mean,
I would like Trudeau to, if he's going to do something for people that are struggling, is to open the rent to own to people that
yeah.
are on assistance, so that they can rent a tiny home, they can apply for a grant
Mm-hmm.
up to $75,000, which would probably do it for a single person, with even with a mobility issue,
Mm-hmm.
to build a tiny home, and they can rent that tiny home once it's complete from the bank, from the government, until it's owned. And the
Right.
segment of their benefit, their income, is pays that month. Because otherwise, you think Kent City's bad now across Canada?
Oh.
Give it 5 more years.
Oh, it's gonna be way worse. It's gonna be way, way worse.
And
But
they won't be able to hide it. They will not have the manpower to go to every park and close. It's going to look like, I saw a video that was unrelated to homelessness. It was I forget his name. He's an urban cowboy guy. I forget what he's called, but he's a Porsche guy. He's famous fashion guy in California. I forget what he's called. Um, it's driving me nuts because I watch him all the time on YouTube. Um, Magnus Walker, I think. I want to say that's his name. He's a fashion guy, kind of an urban hippie. But he's got this crazy Porsche collection at his warehouse, and he drives around and they show streets of Los Angeles, and especially the areas under the bridges and stuff, or the outer outer areas with the cement, where the highways are. Wow. We really want to end up like that? Because it's not. There's no way it's
it'll be a total gong show, yeah. And it's the way things are going.
Show.
Definitely.
Brent,
Hey, Alan, thank you so much. I want to wrap this up, but
absolutely
fabulous time with you on today, and we're definitely going to do this again for sure.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure having you on. And so just before I wrap up, I just want to tell everybody, thank you.
To pluck a couple ideas and do a part 2 or that we pick some of the highlight stuff and kind of dig into a little deeper, where we kind of glazed over the general stuff with the photography and the tiny homes. So I would definitely be down for another one.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And definitely we'll do a recap on it and a follow up with it. We'll call it the segment number 2 with it. But I want to thank everybody tuning in, watching us live today. If you missed today's episode, again, tune into Neil Matheson's YouTube channel and you'll catch up on any of my shows here. It definitely, if you'd like to watch live, definitely tune in live. More interactions, and send your questions into us, and we'll do our best to answer each and every one of them.
I'm seeing here there's a little, there's 3 things on the chat.
Those were comments about the audio quality earlier on in the show. Okay. Alan, you can definitely read them, but.
Oh yeah.
I just noticed them at the bottom of my screen.
We will be launching the spaces that we had before. We'll be doing them through YouTube. The open mics at some point.
The open mic type sessions, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the people. There's been a lot of asking lately regarding that. I'm glad you brought the topic up. So, people that have been asking about open mic, yes, it will be coming back. It will be similar to the open mic. We may not call it open mic. I'm not quite sure yet, but it'll be a themed topic. So what it'll be is it'll be the same gathering of people. maybe not. I think there was the one record time. I think there was over 178 people. I believe it was Keyman. Mm-hmm. I didn't even see everyone there. It was brought to my attention. Hey, like you got 178 people. I'm like, well, I can't talk to them all at once. Yeah. But my point is that it'll be more themed based. So like it'll be like today's topic is, Alan, I'll just say, hey, it's we're going to talk about tiny homes. So tiny homes chat, or it'll be accessibility. It'll be about affordability, like truly affordable.
C22.
Yeah, it'll be like C22 chat. It'll be whatever it is. But I mean, I can say it'll be open mic, so people kind of know. Yeah, hey, but yeah.
And we'll just be sending out invitations. It'll be like a invitation to a Zoom. Mm-hmm. So you just click on the link to the Zoom, and
how many people could we fit in one Zoom?
It's 100. It's 100, I think.
100,
100, yeah. So it's a fair amount.
And there'll definitely will be different guidelines, same as the same kind of the way that it was running in Twitter space. Basically people when they're speaking, they'll just mute their mic while another person's talking, and I mean, there might be a few trial by errors when it gets launched. I mean, I'm sure there'll be a couple little bugs here and there, but we'll work through it. And
is there a hand gesture? Like
I believe there is.
There
is a reaction, and you can raise your hand, and there's key binds to do it, and there is the chat to interact with as well, and to make sure that people are getting their messages through.
Yeah, and it's more of the same kind of theme. It is, but it's rebranding it, like we mentioned before, and I'm looking forward to it because I know people need and want that interactions, and I get it. I miss that too, you guys. Like I do, and so by bringing it onto Zoom, I think it gives people more an option because they can actually do video, or they can do just audio, right?
Yeah,
so now you've got more options.
Choice whether you want to do that or not.
So now you've got more options too, or Twitter Space you didn't have it, and also, I mean, I can use any device to use for Zoom. And that's another bonus too. And that was a lot of feedback. So there was a lot of thinking that went into this decision making, and that's because people say, well, why? Well,
and also, let's be blunt. I mean, even anybody that misbehaves on the Zoom, they'll be turfed, right? And it'll be easier to turf people too.
I'm saying that to Neil earlier. I said, I'm only slightly softer than Dan.
Yeah. They'll go into their green room, right? They'll go into the green room.
The green room, yeah.
Or the white room. Hey, where is it?
In the corner, facing the wall.
They'll say, hey, what is it? What? Oh, they see as myself. What? And so I think it's more about respecting people's time when they're speaking.
From Seinfeld. No soup for you. 1 year.
No soup for you. I had that happen one time. This is going back quite a few years ago now. Wow, when they had Greyhound. So I took a Greyhound trip one evening. Back in 2013. Took a Greyhound trip. Or no, 2014. Yeah, it was 2014. So I took it out to Calgary, and I stayed at this little hotel. And it was nice. I had points I saved up with my mom. Her and I had traveled, and my mom would say, oh, God rest her soul. Oh, let's just put it on my card. So I kept on, let's stay at this one hotel. Why? I kept on getting all these points. So I saved up like so many points. So we went, and and hey, thanks, Mom. I mean, you know what I mean? So I would go and use these points, so I do want to stay somewhere. Now go free night. Yeah. So anyway, I stayed at this one hotel, and I wish I wouldn't have, but anyway, it was okay. The soup Nazi, I called her the coffee Nazi. Instead of no soup for you, no coffee for you. I said, hey, where's the coffee in the morning? Well, we got decaffeinated. I'm not having decaffeinated coffee in the morning. And sir. No coffee for you. You wait. And I thought she was serious. She was joking with me. And I said, where'd you get that from? Have you ever watched that segment? No soup for you. She goes, I'm the coffee Nazi. But
I remember when George got bread on that, and he asked for the bread, and the soup Nazi's like, "You're
oh
pushing
yeah,
a little man."
you're pushing your luck.
Okay, let's sign off though, people. Do
Yep,
your sign off
yep.
now, Brent.
Thank you, Ellen, again, and we look forward to having you back on
Oh,
soon.
that was a pleasure. That was I
And
didn't know what to expect, but that was. I'll definitely do this again.
and anyone
Um,
tuning in now, look forward to our next advertising. Look forward to having an open mic type session. It'll be themed, and be more details to come for it. So thanks again, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
okay.
Good night.
Hey.
All right.